Hello, and welcome to another edition of Bill and Kipp's Excellent Bible Adventure. Still looking at the Gospel of John and moving our way through all the great stories of the Gospel of John. I'm Bill Brunson, and this is Kipp McClure. We're both pastors here at Vestavia Hills Methodist Church, and it's a joy to be with you today as we now look at the Gospel of John, chapter 6.
And chapter 6 is a story that we're mostly all familiar with, and it involves two items. I think it's still over there. I can't quite tell.
Over here.
Yeah, there's bread. We have fish and bread. The story of the 5 loaves and 2 fish. Now you'll notice here that we have one loaf and 1 fish. And there's a logic because we're trying to save money. And I figured 2 fish would cost more than 1.
True.
And this is a really big fish.
It really is, yeah.
I figure it's bigger than the fish that the little boy in the story actually had.
I would think so.
So I felt like, pound for pound, I came out on a better deal. And then the loaf of bread, not sure how big the loaves he would have had, but probably 5 slices would be about equivalent.
Right, yeah.
So I feel like I actually supersized this.
You did, yeah, absolutely. I like that.
But,
supersize the loaves and
yes,
fish.
not exact, but pound for pound, we came out better. Now, just for the sake of me not getting distracted, I want to move this fish. This fish, though, has a little history. It's the backup to another fish called holy mackerel. And when we get to do vacation Bible school in the summer, the troop that often does the fun skits for that, we always try to include holy mackerel into the storyline. So they're eating fish. There's always, and then of course the most important thing that you can do is be able to one that gets to say holy mackerel in the skit. Now this is the backup because we lost holy mackerel at one point. So it's actually a largemouth bass, but holy bass, and so that's that. But that has a little history and a little bit of fun. But our story today is one of a little boy who hears about Jesus and who follows Jesus into kind of the wilderness area, and there Jesus is teaching.
Right. And the little boy is just in the crowd.
Yeah.
Large crowd of people, and everyone's there, and it's a great story because it's a moment with Jesus and the disciples that's absolutely fascinating. It's you wonder how long it took them to put together what they learned that day.
Yeah. Now it took place in Israel, and I think we have a picture here from the site where we think this actually happened.
Right. Above the Sea of Galilee, you have several churches that have been built have been built and then built on multiple times along the way. And so you have the site of the Chapel of the Beatitudes that is on the side of the hill. Then you have the site of the primacy of Peter that we'll get to at the end of the Gospel of John. And then you have the Church of the Multiplication. And the location for it is the church is built over this floor because this tile area is from one of the earliest Byzantine churches that was located in this space.
So there's just layer upon layer upon layer of history.
And when they went in and they dug down through and they were excavating, they came across this floor. And that's when they realized this is why they built this church here. This is the site of the multiplication. So you have the basket and you have the fish, and you might not be able to make it out, but there's little loaves in the basket, and so you can still go there today. It's a beautiful chapel.
So there they are. There's a crowd gathering, kind of out of the way. There's not a lot of restaurants open.
No.
The disciples feel somehow responsible that the crowd's here. They're getting hungry. We better do something. And so they go around kind of seeing what their assets are.
Yeah, first they want Jesus to dismiss the crowd and send them off into the city to get food. He doesn't really like that. He says, you feed them. That's always nice for somebody to assign something
Yeah,
to delegate.
Take on the impossible task.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
several thousand.
And they go do the survey. And I always think that when they bring the little boy to Jesus, I think they bring him to Jesus as an exercise in futility.
Yeah, look, we looked high and low.
All we have is this kid, and he happens to have 5 little barley loaves and 2 fish. It's not enough for any of us to eat and be full. It's enough for a little boy to eat and be full. This is it. You almost picture that they're waiting for him, just sort of, they're letting that pause hang there in the air, waiting on Jesus to say, well, I guess I better send the crowd away.
At least you tried.
I appreciate you trying. You gave it your all. You found the kid. Now give him his lunch back, and I'll get rid of him, and we'll move on. But that's not what he does. And so you have to wonder, after he blesses the food and then gives it to them and says, "Go distribute this," and they keep going. And I'm wondering if it's like that. It's like those moments where you're like you're down to the last little bit.
Well, and we've had those moments in serving communion,
yes,
when the bread wasn't as fresh as we thought it might be,
right?
And you have to, and all of a sudden you're thinking, we need a miracle here if we're going to have communion for this whole crowd with what I can actually use.
Yep,
it's going to take a miracle.
It's going to take a while. It's going to take a miracle because there's a lot of people, and this, yeah. And so you have to wonder if they started out that way and then they realized it's not running out. It's not running out. And then it's not running out. And, and it keeps going and going and going. And we're told that it fed 5,000 men that day, which then you have the children that would be there and women that might have been there. And so you get all this. But then you get that great moment at the end when the disciples walk back up to Jesus, each of them holding a basket full of leftovers. They didn't have enough with 5 loaves and 2 fish, but when Jesus got involved, now they have 12 baskets full of leftovers.
The sum of the parts is greater than what they started with.
That is right.
So it's this amazing miracle that Jesus provides, and the crowd is wowed. Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to put that person in charge of everything? I mean, if you can get free food, if they can just basically manufacture food from thin air,
yeah, then
let's put this guy in charge of us. And so they start wanting to make him king.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this little passage, I think it's around 12, where Jesus realizes where this is going. And he knows this is not his reason, this is not his moment, this is not ultimately his purpose.
Right.
And he just slips away from the crowd and heads up toward the mountains to get away to pray.
Right.
And it's an amazing moment. And it's a reminder for us that there are many things in life that we can do that are highly successful, and perhaps people would look at us and go, that right there is what's going to define you, because that is amazing. That gift that you have is amazing. That whatever feat that you've been able to do. But if we are truly led by God, if our lives are controlled by God, we realize that we can't let the crowd determine what our purpose is.
Right.
And then we have to slip away, get back with the Father, hear again what we're about, and not be sidetracked by things that at that moment in time are not God's will for us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and I've always wondered in all of this how this had to make Jesus feel. I mean, first, sitting on the hillside and looking up as the disciples are all coming back to him, I can't imagine the looks on their faces when when they each are holding a full basket of leftovers. But I always imagine the look on Jesus' face in that moment where he has to be smiling. And he has to have some kind of twinkle in his eye that, you doubted me. You didn't think this was possible. You thought in terms of scarcity, And I don't think that way.
Right.
I
right.
think in terms of the greatness of God, the greatness of my Father, where anything is possible. And so, that the old song, "Little is much when God is in
Right.
it."
Right.
And that's what they experience. But when the people are coming at him, and I mean, this is a amazing moment, an amazing miracle. And then the people are coming at him, and they're wanting him to be their king, and he knows that Caesar is emperor of Rome and is the ruler technically of this land, and is not good. And he knows that the Herods are still in place, with Herod and Philip and others, and he knows that they're not good. And here are these people coming to him wanting him to be their king. You have to wonder if the human side of him, if how that fed his ego,
Sure.
his sin, because it had to feel good in that moment, but it wasn't the ultimate good. It wasn't what he was here for. It wasn't what would define him. It's not his purpose. And so he goes back off to pray, to recenter himself on, but I'm here for you. And I'm here to be your servant. I'm here to accomplish your will, not my own. The same kind of prayer he'll pray down the road when he goes to the Garden of Gethsemane.
Absolutely.
It's about you, not me. And so he goes up all on the hillside above the Sea of Galilee. You have these little cave areas. And the tradition is that you go back in the cave far enough where you can't see out to the sides. All you can see is forward. All you can see is the water. And you sit up in that cave and you pray to God, and you're looking out at the beauty of the water, but the world around you is not distracting you. And so you can imagine him going up and backing himself into one of those caves and looking out and focusing only on God.
You and I have been blessed to pastor churches in different places and different sizes. And when it comes time to church budgets and, trying to get people to give and to commit to give, I remember sometimes in some of the smaller churches where I pastored, there was always this sense that we need to tell people how bad things are, what the bills are. If you don't give, we can't pay the electricity.
Right.
And what we've learned in our years together is that people have a much greater appreciation for giving, not because of scarcity or, oh my goodness, we don't do this, fall apart, but look at the broadness of what God is doing, and that's what gets people excited about
Right.
it. But we, as human beings, so often we get scared, we get worried, we think worst case scenario, and instead of seeing or believing that God can take what we have and do something amazingly different than what we expected, it's easy for us to get kind of pulled back into that. Oh, there's no way. There's only 5 loaves and 2 fish here.
Right, absolutely. But how many? And I think about here, and I think about other churches and other situations. How many times we have started out with, and maybe I've been the one standing there going, "Look, we only have, 5 loaves, 2 fish. This is it. We don't have a lot."
Right.
And how many times have we looked back? I think more often than not, we look back and we realize that in the end, we were standing there holding baskets full of leftovers.
Yeah.
because when we stop questioning and stop doubting, God takes what we have and multiplies it and does amazing things.
In amazing ways.